There are a variety of cranes, hoist, and rigging devices that are used in industry for lifting and moving materials. It is everyone's responsibility, working around and near this equipment, to use caution and exercise good judgment, because crane operators cannot always see everyone when operating the crane. Don't take chances, and never walk or stand under any raised load. Crane and hoist operators are responsible for operating hoisting equipment safely and conducting functional tests of the equipment prior to using the equipment. Operators are responsible for selecting and using rigging equipment appropriately. Crane and hoist operators may be required to complete daily operational checklists to verify their equipment is in good operating condition. In most organizations, the maintenance department is responsible for performing annual maintenance and inspection of all cranes and hoists. The maintenance department may be required to conduct periodic and special load tests of cranes and hoists, in addition to maintaining proper written records of tests, repairs, and other required documentation. It is the crane and hoist operator's ultimate responsibility to only operate safe and serviceable equipment. Anyone using a crane or hoist must be trained and authorized by the company. The company decides if a license is required. However, all crane and hoist operators must be properly trained and authorized before operating this type of equipment. Proper records and documentation of this training is necessary. Operators must comply with the following rules while operating the cranes and hoists. Do not engage in any practice that will divert your attention while operating the equipment. Respond to signals only from the person who is directing the lift or any appointed signal person. Obey a stop signal at all times. Do not move a load over people. People shall not be placed in jeopardy by being under a suspended load. Never work under a suspended load unless blocks, jack, or solid footing that will safely support the entire weight supports the load. When a load is suspended, the crane hoist operator must remain at the controls. Never exceed the rated load capacity of a crane, hoist, chain, or sling. Operators must know the weight of the object they are lifting so as not to exceed the rated capacity of the equipment. When lifting a load, use the most vertical sling position possible and avoid side pulls. Side pulls can cause the hoist rope to slip out of the drum groove, damaging the rope or destabilizing the crane or hoist. Side pulls can also cause the load to swing once the weight of the load has been shifted to the crane. To prevent shock loading, avoid sudden stops or starts. Shock loading can occur when a suspended load is accelerated or decelerated and can overload the crane or hoist. When completing an upward or downward motion, ease the load slowly to a stop. At the start of each work shift, operators should follow a checklist or procedures to make sure the equipment is in safe operating condition. Test the upper limit switch. Slowly raise the unloaded hook block until the limit switch trips. Visually inspect the hook, load lines, trolley, and bridge as much as possible from the operator's station, which is generally on the floor of the building. If possible, test the lower limit switch. Test all direction and speed controls for both bridge and trolley travel. Try to bring the equipment in close proximity to the limit switches to check their operation. Test the pendant emergency stop, and test the hoist brake to verify there is no drift without a load. If any crane or hoist fails this operational test, lock out and tag out the equipment until it is replaced or repaired. Center the hook over the load to keep the cables from slipping out of the drum grooves and overlapping, or to prevent the load from swinging when it's lifted. Use a tag line when loads must traverse long distances or must otherwise be controlled. Manila rope may be used for tag lines. Plan and check the travel path to avoid personnel and obstructions. Lift the load when the move is finished. Choose a safe landing when setting the load down. Never leave suspended loads unattended. In an emergency where the crane or hoist has become inoperative, if a load must be left suspended, barricade and post signs in the surrounding area, under the load, and on all four sides. Lock open and tag the crane or hoist main electrical disconnect switch. When parking a crane or hoist, remove all slings and accessories from the hook. Return the rigging device to the designated storage racks. Raise the hook at least 7 feet above the floor surface. Store the pendant away from aisles and work areas, or raise it at least 7 feet above the floor. place the emergency stop switch or push button in the off position. Rigging is perhaps one of the most important parts of crane and hoist safety. You can have a perfectly maintained and safe crane or hoist, but if the rigging is defective, you have a very unsafe condition. Let's just say that rigging is a critical part of crane and hoist safety. Properly store all rigging. Don't leave them out where they can be damaged or abused. Store nylon slings in cabinets or inside buildings, as direct sunlight can weaken nylon. Never tie knots in any type of chain, wire rope, or slings. Knots will severely damage the material as tremendous pressure is exerted when you lift a load. Rigging is an important part of any crane or hoist equipment. If you abuse rigging safety practices, an accident will happen. Inspect your equipment every day before you use it. If something's wrong, notify your supervisor to correct the problem. Always follow the manufacturer's guidelines. They designed the equipment with safety as their first consideration. Only select rigging equipment that is in good condition. All rigging equipment must be inspected before use, and any defective rigging must be removed from service and destroyed to prevent inadvertent reuse. The load capacity limits must be stamped or affixed to all rigging components. It is a generally accepted safety rule that a minimum safety factor of 5 should be maintained for wire rope slings. Of course, it's up to each organization to set the specific safety rules, frequency of inspections, and all maintenance procedures for cranes, hoists, and rigging equipment. Nylon slings with abnormal wear, torn stitching, broken or cut fibers, or discoloration or deterioration may be considered unsafe, and a complete inspection to determine continued use should be provided by a competent person. Wire rope slings with kinking, crushing, bird caging, or other distortions should be considered unsafe. If there is evidence of heat damage, cracks, deformation, or worn end attachments, this too could be an unsafe wire rope sling. If hooks are opened more than 15% at the throat of the hook, or if hooks are twisted sideways more than 10 degrees from the plane of the unbent hook, these too are unsafe conditions. Steel chain slings with cracked, bent, or elongated links or components, or cracked hooks render these slings defective and should be replaced. Remember that the crane or hoist operator is the person who inspects this equipment before the beginning of the shift and determines if the equipment is serviceable or not. Never use defective equipment when working with cranes, hoists, or rigging equipment. Cranes or hoists shall not be loaded beyond their rated capacity for normal operations. Any crane or hoist suspected of having been overloaded must be removed from service until they have been inspected, repaired, load tested, and approved for use before being returned for service. To prevent stress on your lifting chains or slings, keep in mind this important safety rule. Keep your lifting rope or chain as straight and parallel to the vertical as possible. If you must lift at an angle, don't exceed 10 degrees from the vertical. This is about the safest method of lifting anything. If you exceed the 10-degree angle, you're asking for trouble. If your crane or hoist is off-center from the load, it could start swinging from side to side when it's lifted. Make sure no one is standing nearby when you lift a load, and keep the load as straight as possible. When traveling with a load, always carry the load as close to the floor as possible. If the load does start swinging, you'll be able to stop it quickly before you cause an accident. Never jerk a load up or down, as this can quickly overload your crane or rigging equipment because of the jerking movement. Lift and lower loads slowly and very carefully. These are just common safety rules. We have discussed a number of do's and don'ts in this short training program, but the most important safety rule to remember is that crane and hoist operators must always inspect their equipment before each shift. They also must verify that the equipment and rigging is in a safe and serviceable condition, and to remove any equipment that is found or suspected of being defective. Operators have the responsibility to never allow anyone under a suspended load, and to take all precautions when using a crane or hoist in an area where others are working. Know the weight of your loads, and always use the best sling angle when lifting loads. Keep your lifting rope or chain as straight and parallel to the vertical as possible. If you must lift at an angle, don't exceed 10 degrees from the vertical. There are many rules for operators to learn, understand, and to put into action. When you're using cranes, hoist, and rigging equipment, your life and the lives of others is at stake. So don't take chances. Be professional, because it's the right thing to do. Thank you.